take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Tuesday, December 1st, 2015, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Welcome to the show. So glad that you can be here with us for our live stream on CannabisRadio.com. We're also simulcasting, whatever you want to call it, on 420radio.org. Hope you're all getting a nice clear signal. We're working out some of the technical details as we continue our migration from 420radio.org to cannabisradio.com. If this is a new piece of information to you, don't worry. 420 Radio will still exist. It's just going to transition into being an all marijuana music station. We're going to turn it over to Herb Thrasher and Big Daddy Fink and let this be an all music, all concert, all cannabis events sort of live stream, and we'll work in conjunction with cannabisradio.com. You might see us, both of us, at a lot of these events, so going to be a good time moving forward. Also, we're still working on the RSS feeds, getting the show back up on Stitcher and on iTunes. That will be coming up very shortly, so thanks to those of you who've been sticking around through all 693 of our shows. That's our total so far. We're rapidly approaching show number 700. Now, coming up on today's show, we've got all sorts of interesting stuff to talk about, including our guest joining us at half past, who is Michael Sindrich. He is the chair of the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. This is a group of current and former NFL and college football players that are lobbying for recognition of medical marijuana within the football community, especially understanding how much THC can help mitigate the damage of concussions and traumatic brain injuries. So Michael Sindrich will join us at half past. We'll be talking football and marijuana. Looking forward to that. Two of my favorite things. Also coming up on the show today, we'll have time for a radical rant, looking again at California, and they're gearing up with, I believe, 10 different initiatives now that have been submitted to the Secretary of State's Office for Legalization of Marijuana. And some of the proponents of some of the initiatives are taking pot shots, pardon the pun, at some of the other initiatives. And my radical rant today is all about how it's cool to be fighting for your initiative. It's not cool to be fighting against someone else's. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Also coming up on the show today, we'll have time for some drug war data mining. I was updating my map today on the commercial marijuana bans here in the state of Oregon. Everybody's looking to the state of Oregon as being the state so far with the best marijuana legalization law, and yet over half of this state, marijuana businesses are not legal. That's right. In over half of the state, marijuana businesses are banned. We'll also tell you how many people in the state of Oregon that affects when we get to the drug war data mines. That comes right after the Behind the Headlines segment. In the headlines today, Dan Riffle, longtime policy director at Marijuana Policy Project, has resigned his position with MPP, and the reason why may not surprise you. We'll tell you why when we get to Behind the Headlines, and that comes right after the Cannabis Radio News. And in the headlines today, we've got the possibility of legalization in Massachusetts. We've got pesticide news in Oregon, North Dakota medical marijuana, New Jersey marijuana arrests, New York Native Americans looking to produce medical marijuana, and Minnesota looking to expand its medical marijuana to suit chronic pain. All that coming up on the Russ Belville Show, plus Hour 2 Toker Talk Radio, where we take your calls live at 971-533-7111.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
The son of a Polish immigrant who grew up in a Brooklyn tenement, he went to public schools, then college, where the work of his life began, fighting injustice and inequality, speaking truth to power. He moved to Vermont, won election and praise as one of America's best mayors. In Congress, he stood up for working families and for principle, opposing the Iraq War, supporting veterans. Now he's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system, funded by over 1 million contributions, tackling climate change to create clean energy jobs, fighting for living wages, equal pay, and tuition-free public colleges.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather, an honest leader, building a movement with you to give us a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is now available exclusively at cannabisradio.com, featuring reporting from the Associated Press. Now, your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds in the Cannabis Radio News. This is your Cannabis Radio News for Tuesday, December 1st, 2015. The campaign to regulate marijuana like alcohol in Massachusetts submitted more than 103,000 total signatures, and 64,750 valid signatures of registered state voters are required to qualify for the November 2016 ballot. The Secretary of the Commonwealth is expected to validate the signatures by mid-December, at which time the petition will be transmitted back to the Massachusetts legislature. If the legislature does not adopt the initiative backers must collect 10,792 additional signatures in June of 2016 to place the initiative on the November 2016 ballot. The proposed initiative would allow adults 21 and older to possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana and grow a limited number of marijuana plants in their homes, similar to home brewing, and create a 3.75% state excise tax on retail marijuana sales, in addition to the standard sales tax, and allow local governments to establish an additional local sales tax of up to 2%. Starting next spring, Oregon will require all marijuana products sold in dispensaries or recreational shops to undergo testing for nearly 60 pesticides. Until the new rules take effect, the state plans to allow the marijuana industry to continue to operate as it does now, with broad pesticide regulations that allow tainted products to end up on store shelves. But on Monday, the Oregon Health Authority signaled that it is willing to consider tightening up current pesticide rules until new, tougher regulations go into effect next June. A member of the committee that advises the agency on medical marijuana rules on Monday pressed the state to require tougher testing between now and June, pushing the health authority to ditch its current requirement that marijuana be tested for 4 broad classes of chemicals and instead require testing for 10 or 12 of the most commonly used pesticides. Backers of a proposed medical marijuana ballot measure have received the go-ahead to begin collecting signatures to put their measure on the November 8th general election ballot, according to a November 30th news release from North Dakota Secretary of State Al Jaeger's office. The North Dakota Compassionate Care Act, which is backed by the North Dakota Committee for Medical Marijuana, would allow state residents to possess up to 3 ounces of marijuana for medicinal use. Qualified patients would also be permitted to purchase medical cannabis from state-licensed dispensaries or cultivate small amounts at home. Supporters will need to collect at least 13,542 legitimate signatures from residents to get the proposed measure on the ballot in 2016. Nearly double the number of people were arrested for marijuana possession in a year in New Jersey compared to 20 years ago, according to the latest figures available. The change runs counter to the nationwide trend as public acceptance of marijuana use grows in the United States, leading generally to a decline in arrests. Udi Ofer, the executive director of New Jersey's ACLU chapter, said he's especially concerned by the numbers because studies show African Americans are charged with simple possession 3 times as much as whites, despite both groups having the same usage rates for the drug. New Jersey's 24,765 arrests for possession of small amounts of marijuana in 2013 was the state's highest number in 20 years, nearly doubling the amount in 1993, when the population was 12% less. Simple possession is considered less than 50 grams, or about 1 3/4 ounces. The Shinnecock Indian Nation in New York is considering possibly producing medical marijuana on their lands in conjunction with state and federal laws. Last year, the Cole Memorandum was created as a guide for Indian tribes that want to produce medical marijuana in states where medical marijuana has been legalized. According to the memo, some tribes have requested guidance on the enforcement of the Controlled Substances Act on tribal lands by the U.S. Attorney's Office. The Minnesota Health Department is set to announce whether it will expand the legal use of medical marijuana to cover people with intractable pain. The department's top leaders were due to announce their decision Wednesday after several meetings around the state to gather public input. Medical marijuana's use was restricted to just a handful of conditions when legislators approved it. That disappointed supporters of medical marijuana and has held down enrollment, leading to higher costs for those using it. A decision on whether to add chronic pain has been legally required by January 1st. Minnesota's medical marijuana is non-smoked forms of marijuana. Whole plant marijuana is not allowed. This has been your 420. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Tuesday, December 1st, 2015. I'm Russ Belville.
This is the Russ Belville Show.
Imagine life without taxes. Let New Era Certified Public Accountants, NewEraCPAs.com, handle your Cannabis 280E and tax strategy. Get your business prepared with New Era CPA's Cannabis Finance Bootcamp. NewEraCPAs.com, with years of experience in the industry, we are one of the nation's leading accounting firms for growers, dispensaries, and ancillary companies from Washington to California. NewEraCPAs.com.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
And behind the headlines today, we're taking a look at the transition of marijuana legalization from being an activist-led movement to now being an industry-led movement. The story comes up from the International Business Times. Headline is that a major pot activist quits marijuana policy project, says industry is taking over the movement. According to the report, Dan Riffle, the federal policy director for the National Advocacy Group Marijuana Policy Project, or MPP, and one of the most outspoken advocates of cannabis legalization, is quitting his job. As Riffle noted in an email to colleagues in early November, quote, "The industry is taking over the legalization movement, and I'm not interested in the industry," end quote. And on that same day, MPP announced a new political campaign funded by marijuana industry revenues. The two announcements weren't completely a coincidence, according to IBT, that quotes Riffle saying, "I think it's a pretty stark example of the kinds of things I was concerned about, and that were the reasons why I left. I felt for the last few months the industry was kind of dominating the legalization movement's work in general, and MPPs specifically." He also worries about how the industry might lobby for things that perhaps activists wouldn't be in favor of. He says, quote, "They might lobby for preferential tax treatment that drives down prices. They might lobby for less regulation. The industry's goal is to make money, but from a public health perspective, we might have other goals that are at odds with the industry's goal of making money." The story goes on to talk about Ohio and how that was, industry-dominated legalization that managed to fail. It talks about, I love this paragraph about, it's not that big business hasn't been seeping into marijuana industries in other parts of the country. In many of the new medical marijuana systems launching in various states, the only dispensary operators who can afford the six-figure application fees and multi-million-dollar performance bonds required are those that already boast hefty financial assets. And in recreational markets like Colorado, mom and pop cannabis operations are going out of business as those who are left consolidate the spoils into statewide chains. But most of these developments went unremarked. The Ohio plan was so audacious, so transparent in its corporate machinations that it was no longer possible for those both inside and outside the marijuana movement to look the other way. So, now the question is about big pot and the activists getting left behind as the industry moves forward. Ethan Nadelman from Drug Policy Alliance is quoted as saying, "We're entering a new era of marijuana law reform in which the influence of funders and organizations driven primarily by concerns for civil rights and personal liberties, and not by any financial interest in legalizing marijuana, will be superseded by people and corporations driven largely by their pursuit of legal profits." End quote. Now, the influence of corporate marijuana is pretty obvious when you start looking at Arizona and Nevada's campaigns for legalization, both of these funded by Marijuana Policy Project. Nevada is instituting a system where both medical and personal use marijuana is subject to grow halos, which is if you live within 25 miles of a pot outlet, you are not allowed to grow your own marijuana at home. Obviously, this doesn't help many people from a civil rights perspective, but it certainly helps people from an industry perspective to not have the people competing with them by growing their own free cannabis. In Arizona, MPP already instituted the 25-mile halo in medical. For their recreational bill, they have given broad powers to the localities to be able to ban personal home cultivation, and nearly every locality in Arizona wants to. So the legalization MPP brings us in Arizona may also be a no home grow style of legalization. But of course, California is the big one. Billionaire Sean Parker is funding the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, and there's at least 9 other initiatives that are looking to legalize in the state of California. And as this continues, as this trend continues, marijuana advocacy advocates are put in a delicate position of having to fight against initiatives that they feel are ceding marijuana over to the corporate interests, and thereby voting against their own best interests in ending their own criminality. We're going to see this writ large in California. There's a sort of a mini version of this battle going on in Massachusetts, where there's another MPP led initiative that's more restrictive than what the activists are proposing with Bay State repeal. Michigan's got a similar problem where there's 2 or 3 different initiatives that are battling for the ballot.
Well, excuse me!
So it is a big mess out there when it comes to marijuana legalization. We are in that crossover stage between advocacy and big business. And it's only going to get more big businessy. I say learn the new paradigm and evolve and adapt to it. Tilting at windmills isn't going to help anybody. Happy 420, Denver. We're back after this.
The Russ Belville Show. Chat is for friends 18 and older. We expect our chat to be civil, mature, and free from excessive profanity. If you don't like these rules, there are approximately 6 billion other chat rooms with lower standards that you can visit.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details.
Duck, Dr. Dabber, hurry! Its temperature is shooting past 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's burning up.
I'm afraid for this little guy, it's just too late.
What caused the problem?
Only Dr. Dabber can maintain the perfect temperature for a smooth-tasting, slower burn. This standard vaporizer lost all of its health benefits, sending it up in smoke.
So you're telling me that most vapor pens burn so hot they produce smoke, not vapor?
Correct. Keep away from those standard vaporizer pens and turn to Dr. Dabber. Doctor's orders.
Less heat, more flavor.
Arguing for the end of adult marijuana prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It is even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more in this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Welcome back, everybody. We go to the Oregon Drug War Data Mines today, specifically the website marijuana.oregon.gov. And on that website, you can find a link to the cities and counties that have enacted bans on marijuana commerce. It's marijuana.oregon.gov. And that's what we're going to focus on today is the fact that marijuana business is banned in over half of the state of Oregon. This is, of course, thanks to the infamous West Idaho Compromise, and it works out to having bans in 16 counties that make it 52.7% of the land area in those counties not 16 counties. It's, 13 counties. My bad. 13 counties. So those 13 counties, the land mass comprises 52.7% of the state of Oregon where marijuana commerce is banned. That's no licensed cultivation, no licensed processing, no licensed wholesaling, no licensed retailing. And the counties that have instituted these bans, Baker, Crook, Harney, Klamath, Malheur, Morrow, Umatilla, Union, and Wheeler counties, their bans are immediate and not subject to a vote of the people. That's because of that aforementioned West Idaho Compromise. What that was is we passed Measure 91 here in the state of Oregon by 56% in an off-year election. The greatest support any statewide marijuana legalization vote has gotten. Washington, D.C. got 70%, but that's a district, not a state. So Oregon's got the biggest support for marijuana legalization, and part of our statewide vote said that counties and cities do have local control. They do have the right to ban any of the marijuana licenses. However, if they do that ban, they have to subject it to a vote of the people. 56% of the state of Oregon statewide voted on this and said, if there's going to be a ban, it should be subject to the will of the people through a vote at the next general election. But after Measure 91 passed, the legislature was then tasked with writing the laws that would implement Measure 91. And in HB 3400, they implemented what I call the West Idaho Compromise, which says all of these counties that are east of the Cascade Mountain Range, the area I like to call West Idaho, because culturally, geographically, religiously, economically, it's very similar to my home state of Idaho. But anyway, the counties that voted more than 55% against Measure 91, they really, really hate potheads. They really, really hate pot. If they voted more than 55% against it, the compromise allows them to institute bans without a vote of the people. Now, their argument was, well, look, we just voted on legalization and we just rejected it out of hand. Why should we have to vote again to reject pot shops? And my counter argument to that would be because it's two different arguments. The first argument was marijuana is completely prohibited in Oregon. Should it be legal? And sure, maybe you voted against that. Maybe you rejected that as a county. But the second vote is, now that marijuana is legal and anyone can grow and possess it, should there be pot shops? And I would argue that's a different question, because now that it's legal, now you may have rejected it as a county, but it's legal statewide, everyone can possess it, everyone can grow it. Would you be better off letting those people sell their stuff on the black market to each other or setting up some sort of pot shop where you can at least get some tax revenue off it. I think a lot of those pot-hating counties could be argued into supporting pot businesses as the lesser evil to allowing personal possession and personal grows to become a cover for black market operations. But those counties, Baker, Crook, Harney, Klamath, Malheur, Morrow, Umatilla, Union, and Wheeler, never get to hear that argument because their counties just banned marijuana commerce with no vote of the people. The 4 other counties with bans are Douglas, Jefferson, Lynn, and Marion counties. But there, the people will have a chance to weigh in because those counties still have to follow the law that was passed statewide. The combined land mass in those 13 counties comes to 51,810 square miles. That's over half of Oregon's total 98,381 square miles. And there are 825,921 people living in those counties. That makes up 20.8% of Oregon's estimated population. But in addition to these county bans, there are also 46 cities that have enacted marijuana business bans. 26 of the 46 cities also won't have to have any vote of the people because 26 of those cities are located in counties that voted more than 55% against Measure 91. So if you add in those cities that aren't already in the counties that have bans, add in the extra cities, you get another 139,537 people. That's a total of 965,458 people, or 24.3% of Oregon's population. Or for soundbite purposes, you want to boil it down to a soundbite, almost 1 in 4 Oregonians lives in over half the state where marijuana businesses are illegal. Nearly 1 million people in a state where marijuana is legal have no legal place to buy it. They have the legal right to grow 4 plants. They have the legal right to possess marijuana. But where are they supposed to get it from? Well, I guess they drive across the Cascade Mountain Range and buy it legally here on the west side of the state. All right, stay tuned. We got Michael Sindrich from Gridiron Cannabis Coalition coming up next.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
The Fingerboard Extension has fretted instruments to enhance your creativity. It has new and used guitars and banjos from beginning to high class. The Fingerboard Extension has National Resophonic, Husson Dalton, Larrabee, Heritage and Recording King guitars, and Mike Ramsey, Wildwood, Gold Tone, and Recording King banjos. The Fingerboard Extension also has drum stuff, used gear, and parts. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension, downtown Corvallis, Oregon at 120 Northwest 2nd, or check out the inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com and reverb.com.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping ganjapreneurs grow.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Welcome back, everyone. 31 after the hour, and today we get to talk about 2 things that are near and dear to my heart. That's marijuana and football. And joining me to discuss the issue is the founder of the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition, Michael Sindrich, joins us by telephone. Hi, Michael. How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
I'm fantastic, and I got to tell you, the last event where I saw you, I think it was the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo down there in Phoenix, and you had Kyle Turley, Nate Jackson, Ricky Williams discussing this issue. Give folks an idea what the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition is all about.
Sure. Yeah, we also actually had Evan Britton on the panel as well. He's one of our more recent individuals that joined our organization and joined the fight. Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. We are an organization dedicated to the advancement of medical cannabis and the research of cannabis with regards to treating sports-related injuries, specifically brain injuries. And we've been at it for about 6 months now, attending events, raising awareness. We are in the process of putting together some research trials with some of the players we're working with. So really, we're just doing whatever we can to progress the science, progress the medicine, provide an alternative treatment for current and former players, and hopefully, in the end, change the NFL's substance abuse policy.
You know, we've got a lot of evidence coming in now scientifically that shows how THC can help in the regeneration of brain cells and protection from the concussive trauma, the traumatic brain injury that these players are suffering from. But before we got any of that evidence, why did some players like Ricky Williams want to use cannabis?
Well, I think many of them weren't realizing that they were using it for medicinal purposes. I think that they were using cannabis. They know that it made them feel good. It helped with some of the injuries and some of the other issues that they were having. And they were just using it to generally feel good, because when you're putting your body through what these guys put their bodies through, you generally don't feel good after practices or after games. And I think that it has as science has progressed and the movement has progressed, it's become a legitimate medicine. And now we're seeing, hey, you may have been using it to just feel good, but really what you were doing is you were using it as a medicine, and you were probably substituting cannabis for other pharmaceuticals or other products you could have been using. And it's great to see. It's great to see something like cannabis and other natural holistic medicines being used by these players, especially because the pharmaceutical industry really has been failing them.
Yeah, and there's no doubt to the level of pharmaceutical use that is rampant in the NFL and other sports leagues, especially contact sports leagues. I'm a Packers fan, so I remember the days when Brett Favre was battling his painkiller addiction. And speak a little bit about that aspect of this, how the pharmaceutical industry, like you say, it is failing these players.
Yeah, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you or any of the listeners this, but painkiller overdose deaths are down in states where medical cannabis is legal. And these guys, and many of them are being put on whether it's Vicodin, Oxy, the morphine, the different shots that they're getting in the locker room so they can just get back out on the field. I mean, pain is something that these guys are dealing with on a regular basis. So when it comes to the option when you have this pain, it's to use substances that are oftentimes extremely addictive, and that really the more that you use, the more that you need, and it just sends them on a downward spiral. And then you take, besides the pain-related issues, you look at some of the other medicines that they've taken. As far as what Kyle Turley will tell you, he's taken everything from muscle relaxers to antidepressants, antipsychotic medications, and he started seeing some things later in life that now we know are a direct result, in part because of the pharmaceuticals, but also because of his brain injuries. And the medicines that they were giving him for some of these issues were actually creating worse symptoms than what he was having before. He was getting to a point where he was getting suicidal, he was getting homicidal, and he blames that in part on the pharmaceuticals that he was being given.
My goodness. All right, we're speaking with Michael Cindrich from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. You can find him on Twitter at GridironCan, C-A-N-N. And what's your website, Michael?
GridironCannabis.com.
Okay, GridironCannabis.com. Now, coming out this Christmas season, there's a movie that delves into the NFL and their covering up of concussion-related injuries and damages. I think the movie's called Concussion. And the NFL recently had a 9-figure settlement in a concussion lawsuit. Do you think this is going to propel the NFL toward recognition of medical cannabis, or are they just going to are they going to hold off until the feds say something?
I think this will be part of what pushes them towards recognizing cannabis as a treatment. What we've seen with the NFL is they are very influenced by the public views and public perceptions. And I think that this is not only going to change the NFL's view of cannabis and of concussions, but I think it will change the public, their view in many cases. And one thing is that it was supposed to come out around Christmas. The last I saw, I believe the release date got pushed back till the Friday after Super Bowl. It kind of makes you wonder if that had something to do with marketing by Sony, or if there was maybe some NFL influence there that caused them to say, hey, this is going to create some issues, and we're going to have to answer a lot of questions. And, maybe it made more sense for them to pressure Sony to release that after the Super Bowl. Again, I don't know, but it is a little suspicious that that date's been moved.
Now, are you guys at Gridiron Cannabis Coalition planning any sort of educational campaigns in the stead? Maybe leading up to Super Bowl, throughout the playoffs, handing out flyers, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we haven't specifically, we're not working with Sony or with the movie, but as far as what we're doing, we're gearing up for the Super Bowl. We're planning on doing some events in Northern California. It just happens to be in Northern California this year. So we're planning on doing some events to both promote our cause and the treatment of these players and utilizing cannabis as a treatment, and also to just to promote the legalization movement in general, because we feel that we need these laws to change, and we're just as happy seeing full-on adult use recreational legalization, because that's what allows access. That's what allows the ability to study and to be able to use all of these different products. So we're fully supportive of all of these measures, and we're really gearing up to the Super Bowl and trying to do as much as possible between now and then.
I would also think for a lot of these players, having to get on some sort of medical cannabis registry might be troublesome from a privacy perspective, and they might prefer recreational legalization where they don't have to sign up for anything.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and especially if it's a current player who doesn't want the league to know what they're doing and that they're using cannabis.
So, is it too much to think that someday in my lifetime I'm going to see volcano vaporizers on the sideline for a guy that just got his bell rung, or are we really just looking at taking it off of the controlled substances testing list and turning a blind eye if players are using it?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see volcano vaporizers on the sidelines, but we may see some chambers in the locker room where they can go in and get a certain vapor. Maybe it's non-psychoactive. Maybe there's CBD water, other CBD products that end up being utilized. But really, I think part of what we would like to see is the medicine to move beyond, which it already is moving beyond just people who are smoking or vaping. We see the opportunities. There may be patches. There may be any number of different products that these guys can use, that they can use on the sideline, that they might even be able to use, if they have a patch on while they're playing, so that you get your bell rung, you already have something going on with your brain. It's almost a second helmet that is protecting you from the effects of that hit.
Now, are you working primarily at affecting the NFL, or do you also have some influence toward NCAA football?
Well, our focus right now has been on the NFL because of the players that we're working with. It's our opinion that if we can effectuate change with the NFL, that it will trickle down through college, high school, middle school, midget football, and then other sports as well. Because we believe that, really it's not just a football issue. And these are athletes who are looking and who looking for, and they actually need treatment for these different injuries that they're sustaining as a result of playing these sports. And it's about the medicine. It's about giving them these alternative treatments, not forcing prescriptions on them when there are these other products that may help them. But really, yeah, we're talking to people in multiple sports right now. We've been contacted by professional surfers, former NBA players, MMA individuals that are in mixed martial arts. So, really, this isn't just a football issue. This is an issue for all sports and all athletes, and especially sports that have, that are contact sports.
Yeah, and it's, this first came up, when we had that recent Super Bowl, Seattle versus Denver. And the joke was, both teams play in states where marijuana is legal. And now medical marijuana, I think at least, 13 or 14 teams in the league live in a state or play in a state where medical marijuana is legal. Are you looking at maybe restricting it to just those states where medical marijuana is legal, or by taking it off the controlled substances testing list, I guess it would affect all the states?
Yeah, I think it would affect all of the states. I mean, really, these players are going to states on a fairly regular basis, even if they're not living in those states where it is legal. And if they can gain access to it, I mean, some of them may choose to live in those states just so they can have their medicine. They may have to travel for practice or live in the city where their team resides during the season. But many of them would choose to live elsewhere. And, really, I think it's taking it off of the NFL's controlled substance list and allowing any players to use it. And again, we don't want players breaking laws in states where it's illegal, but if they're in states where it is legal and they test positive the next day, in their state, it shouldn't be an issue.
It's Michael Cindrich from the Gridiron Cannabis Coalition. You can check out more about them at gridironcannabis.com. They're on Twitter at gridironcan, C-A-N-N. You can follow them out there. And final question, Michael, is there any strain out there that can fix the Green Bay Packers offense?
I don't know about that. If you talk to Kyle, he'll tell you that Jack will fix just about anything for him. But I don't know about that Green Bay offense. I think it's going to take a lot more than that.
I think you're right. Damn it. All right. Michael Cindrich, thanks for joining us here on the Russ Belville Show. Good luck with all your work, and we look forward to seeing what you got ready for the Super Bowl. We'll make sure to hype it.
Thank you very much.
All right. GridironCannabis.com, folks. Check them out. I think it's one of the most important advocacy groups we've got out there. Get that mainstream football sports watching Midwest Southern audience getting to think about medical marijuana in terms of their favorite football heroes. Could change a lot of minds. All right, stay tuned. We got a Radical Rant coming up next. Fight for your legalization, not against someone else's.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. The Russ Belville Show, the National Wildlife Refuge for marijuana unicorns.
This is Radical Russ encouraging you to take a look at the Weed Blog every day. Johnny Green and the staff at the Weed Blog are on top of all the latest developments in the fight to end marijuana prohibition nationwide. You can even get the Weed Blog on your smartphone by installing the Weed Blog app for iPhone and Android. If it's about weed, it's on the Weed Blog, including my original writing. So don't delay. Read the Weed Blog today.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made cannabis plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R spells out their full-service insurance services, ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
Must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
That marijuana pot, grass, whatever you want to call it, is probably the most dangerous drug.
Some think there won't be room for them in jail. We'll make room.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it and didn't inhale.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
Radical Rant.
Well, we're gearing up for the 2016 election, and marijuana legalization is likely to be on the ballot in 5 states. Already pretty much, it's on the ballot in Nevada. It's pretty much likely confirmed in Massachusetts and Arizona, where MPP's forces have submitted more than enough signatures to get on the ballot. Massachusetts has Bay State repeal as well. I haven't heard their signature counts lately. It's a grassroots effort that's far more liberal than MPP's initiative. Also in Arizona, there's Arizonans for Mindful Reform, again with a more liberal proposal, but again, no signature counts that I've heard so far. But the big fight is going to be in California, where the 800-pound gorilla in the room is the Sean Parker Initiative, otherwise known as the Adult Use of Marijuana Act, AUMA. And there are at least 9 other initiatives that have been filed, but the primary ones out there would be the MCLR, Marijuana Control Legalization and Regulation Act, something like that, and the CCPR, Coalition for Cannabis Policy Reform, aka Reform California, and the CCHI, California Cannabis Hemp Initiative, aka the Jack Herer Initiative. Those are the big 4 I can think of off the top of my head. I know there's others out there. I don't know how much support they've actually gotten. Those are the main 4. And already it's become online this battle over which one is true legalization and which one deserves our support. And I think all marijuana legalization deserves our support, right? Like if you're drowning and you are thrown a rope and a life vest and a life preserver and a rowboat are all sent out after you, you won't care which one you're able to get a hold of, so long as it saves you from drowning. You might prefer the rowboat, get out of the water, be a little drier. You might prefer the life vest, might not be as much effort to stay afloat. Might prefer the life preserver, someone can tow you in somewhere. But if all you get is the rope, you'll be glad to get the rope. And so it is with marijuana legalization, as I see these activists lining up to fight the Sean Parker Initiative. And part of the reason behind it is that the Sean Parker Initiative has the money to win. The number one thing you need to win marijuana legalization is money. And the number 2 thing you need is money. And the number 3 thing you need is money. But let's just lay it out on the table. I don't like that it's that way. I wish our democracy was a more representative democracy where money didn't buy votes and power, but that's the world we live in. You need money. So the Sean Parker Initiative is set for that. So for me, looking at the Sean Parker Initiative, you'd have to find something in it that is such an egregious deal breaker that we'd have to reject its sure thing status of being able to get the signatures, get on the ballot, and pass. That's a sure thing to me at this point. If the Sean Parker Initiative gets all the signatures, which it will, and gets on the ballot, which it will pass. I have no doubt about it. I have no doubt that it will pass. But at this point, you've got activists fighting against it, saying it's not good enough, that we should support some other legalization, the Jack Herer Initiative or MCLR or Reform California. Hey, sure, support them too. Absolutely. I'm the first guy. I'd be the first guy in line to vote for the Jack Herer Initiative if it made the ballot. Absolutely. But if it made the ballot and Adult Use of Marijuana Act made the ballot and Reform California made the ballot and MCLR made the ballot, I'd vote for all them as well. Because I will not reject a rope, a life vest, a life preserver, or a rowboat. I'll take them all. I'll take them all. And I won't vote against one trying to help the other one. I can imagine a lot of people out there that might be CCHI supporters that would think, well, that Sean Parker initiative is going to get a lot of votes from the more conservative people. So the only way CCHI can win is if we don't vote for it, if we vote against it and vote for CCHI or MCLR or Reform California. That way lies madness. And that way lies the only way we could possibly lose legalization in 2016 in California. If we divide the base, and remember, we're talking 8% of the people in California that use cannabis on a regular basis, maybe 6, 7, 8%, something like that. Of that 6, 7, 8%, a significant proportion, maybe 10, 15% are under the voting age. Of those that remain, how many of them actually vote, right? But it's still a significant number, and if that base gets divided among 2, 3, or 4 separate initiatives on the ballot, you know that our opposition base won't be divided. You know that if we tokers are splitting our votes 4 ways across 4 initiatives, you know the cops won't be. You know the prison guards won't be. You know the rehabs won't be. You know the pharmaceutical and alcohol industries won't be. They'll be voting no on all of them. If they're going to be voting no on every chance to end our criminality, we need to vote yes on every chance to end our criminality. And already the complaints are coming in. And at this point, none of them are on the ballot yet. So this is the season for criticism. This is the time to marshal your forces behind whichever legalization you most want to make the ballot. And I got no problem with someone if they want to fight for, let's say, MCLR and proselytize for MCLR and raise money for MCLR and write about MCLR and propose and promote and cheerlead for MCLR. Love it. Great. Go for it. But when you start demeaning another activist legalization and telling people not to vote for it, that's a little different. Now, trying to convince people to support one over the other is fine. Like you can say, hey, look, Jack Herer Initiative allows you to have unlimited personal possession. The Sean Parker Initiative only allows an ounce. Unlimited is better than an ounce. Help us pass Jack Herer Initiative. Great. That's wonderful. But if you start saying support Jack Herer Initiative and vote against Sean Parker, now we've got a problem. Now we've got a problem because now you are advocating taking away one of my options. You are advocating taking away the life preserver or the life vest or the rope because you only like the rowboat. And that's not cool to the drowning man because maybe that rowboat don't make it in time. We've got to stand together and support every option available to legalize marijuana so long as it contains no odious poison pill provisions that make it deserving of a no vote. And my bar is pretty high to clear on that one. You've got to show me an initiative that makes things worse for the average toker. And the baseline on this one is Washington I-502. Legalized just an ounce, didn't legalize home grow, and created a brand new per se DUID. If we could get behind that and pass it, you're going to have to find me something worse than that to earn my no vote on a legalization initiative. And people are trying. But what's funny to me is when people try to point out what's so terrible about the Sean Parker Initiative, it really comes down to 3 basic things. 1, it doesn't legalize enough. 2, it creates more crimes. 3, it'll be a monopoly. Those are or some version of that, right? Those are the 3 main complaints people try to use to convince me that a legalization initiative is bad. Let's tear them down one by one. It doesn't legalize enough. We hear this all the time. We heard this going back to Prop 19. Oh, 5x5 garden, my God, that's just not enough. It only legalizes an ounce, my God, that's just not enough. Well, 1 ounce and 6 plants proposed by the Sean Parker Initiative is the same 1 ounce that everybody else in every other legal state gets. except Washington, D.C. gets 2 ounces, I believe. Maine, if they pass their legalization, it'll be 2.5 ounces. But Massachusetts, Arizona, and Nevada, they've also got 1 ounce on the ballot, or fighting for the ballot. The current legal states have 1 ounce. So not enough. 1 ounce isn't enough. Compared to what? Compared to the 0 you get now. 6 plants isn't enough. Well, Oregon gets 4. Washington gets 0. So California would have the most plants on the West Coast. Colorado only gives you 3 plus 3, 3 mature, 3 mature. Alaska, I think, is the same, 3 by 3. Washington, D.C. allows 6 with a max of 12 per household, so you get a little more in Washington, D.C. But I just don't understand this idea of, well, it doesn't legalize enough, so take nothing? Yeah, I'm all for the idea of, like, fight for more. Like, yeah, sure, go ahead and try to pass the Jack Harrow initiative that gives you 12 pounds and unlimited, 12 pounds and 99 plants or whatever the hell it is. Great, yeah, let's fight for that, sure. But I'm not going to reject 1 ounce and 6 plants if that's the only option that comes up on the board, or even if it's just one of many options that come up on the board, because it'd be better to win 1 ounce and 6 plants than to be stuck with the continued criminalization of marijuana. Some people don't understand that legalization of even just 1 ounce changes everything. First thing it does is it retires your marijuana sniffing drug dogs. When 1 ounce is legal, sniffing marijuana is no longer probable cause of any crime. And they have to retire the dogs that sniff pot, because even if they can smell other things, meth, coke, heroin, whatever, if they're also trained to sniff pot, all a drug dealer has to do is keep a little pot with his stash, and then his defense lawyer will get the evidence thrown out because the dog could have been alerting to marijuana, which is legal. And changing that, just changing the drug dog sniff and the probable cause that illegal marijuana gives cops, doesn't just help the person growing 1 ounce and 6 plants, it helps everybody. Marijuana prosecutions in Washington state declined by 63%. All marijuana prosecutions declined by 63%. Not just the less than 1 ounce misdemeanors, not just the home grows, but all crimes. Almost 2 out of 3 crimes were no longer prosecutable because of the end of that probable cause. That's in a state with no home grow that still maintains a 40-gram felony. In Colorado, where they legalized home grow, the reduction was 81%. 4 out of 5 people who would have been busted for marijuana before legalization of 1 ounce didn't get busted because of legalization of 1 ounce. And if you legalize home grow, there goes all of that probable cause for the sight of marijuana leaves and seeds in your stems in your trash, electric bills, visiting the hydroponic store, buying a lot of fertilizer. None of that's probable cause anymore. So fight for every legalization you can. At this point, before they make the ballot, it's cool to pick your favorite and fight for it. But once any of them makes the ballot, they deserve your support. That's all the time we got for Hour 1. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for Hour 2. Toker Talk Radio will take your live calls, 971-533-7111. For one here at CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!